Hello, you guys, and welcome in episode 7 of the Emmitt Sevores Show. I am joined today by Steezy A. Smith, a guy I haven't spoken to in a while. You know, he hasn't been on the Bolt. He's had other obligations, but for the most part, he's been everywhere. What Dub C Sports, Press Sports, 32-bit, just everywhere. He's been absolutely everywhere. Steezy, how are you doing, my friend?
Man, I'm feeling great, bro. I'm feeling blessed. It's a pleasure to be on, bro. I know it's been a while since we've talked, but you've obviously since rebranded your show, and I haven't had a chance to be on the new show. And so just to be on, I think it's a little overdue. But I really do miss you guys over there at the Bolt. So um, this this definitely itches that feeling just a bit. So thanks for having me on, bro.
Hey, of course, anytime, anytime. Let's get right into it. We'll delay the obvious news of Tom Brady's retirement. We'll set that back just a little bit. But let's talk about the games that's happened this weekend. I haven't gotten to hear your thoughts on anything playoff related. We'll start with the Chiefs. That game was the best one. Mahomes finally beats Joe Burrow. Dang near walk-off field goal at the end. There was a lot of controversy within the game about the referees, but for the most part, it was a pretty good game. Both teams seemed, equally matched. What was your reaction to Mahomes finally getting the upper hand over Joe Burrow?
Man, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, oh, that game finally solidified, Patrick Mahomes' status as the best quarterback of football. But to me, I don't know about you, but he's been the best quarterback of football for the last 3, 4 seasons now. So they didn't really solidify that notion. But I think what it did tell me was that I shouldn't bet against Patrick Mahomes, like ever. Like he's damn near entering Tom Brady. Um, what's it called? How do I phrase it? Because it's like you never want to bet against Brady, right? Well, when it comes to Mahomes, he's starting to enter that same territory. Because for me, I'm not gonna lie. Prior to the game, I had Cincinnati coming out on top. I was just like, oh, it's Burrow head. I kind of fell for the hype. I fell for that. And for Mahomes to do what he did without Kadarius Toney, without Juju Smith, and he had a whole bunch of rookies playing that cornerback. It's just like wow, and not a single pick. He was playing on a bum ankle. I'm running out of words. I'm running out of superlatives to really describe, who he is as a player. And man, it's hard not to root for him.
Yeah, he's easily one of the most likable players. Like I don't think that he has that. I feel like again, I wasn't. I was alive, but I wasn't like there for early Brady. But I feel like he has like an early Brady feel to him, where it's like he's not disliked yet. Like he hasn't
Yeah,
gotten to that territory. But I mean, what you talked about with Patrick Mahomes, it was spectacular. You already said no Kadarius Toney, no Mecole Hardman, no Juju
yeah.
Smith-Schuster. He was throwing passes to Marcus Kemp, and I was the stat I've heard all week. He has 24 career tackles and 4 career receptions. Like that, those are
Oh
the
my.
guys that he's throwing to in that game. And again, you talked about he didn't throw a pick, and then on top of that, he was dealing with the high ankle sprain, which you saw affect him in the middle of the game, but then right at the very end, he was able to kind of gut through the pain, pick up that first down, obviously get the 15-yard penalty that put him in field goal range. But from the Bengals side of things, it has to be extremely frustrating. Like, and again, this is not like Joe Burrow did not play super well. He didn't play as bad as his stats would make it look, but he didn't play super well. But as a team, like this had to have been the year that they were going to get the Chiefs, right? Like this had to be the year. This was the year that the Chiefs were starting all these rookies. This was the year that the Chiefs, and they still really don't have like a number one wide receiver.
Right.
They, their defense, again, all rookies. I think they had like 6 rookie starters on their defense or something in that territory. And obviously those rookies played pretty well. They all had some sort of impact on the game. Um, from the Bengals perspective, I got to be honest. I don't know if they're going to get to another Super Bowl in Joe Burrow's career and I think that it's fair to say that just based off of like we've seen a bunch of people get there and not get back. Rodgers was there in 2010, and if you would have told me in 2010 he would never get back, I would tell you were lying. But here we are, whatever, 12, 13 years later, and he still hasn't been back. And it's like Phillip Rivers never got to one. Like there's just a lot of people who had been on these very, these droughts. And I feel like with the Chiefs only getting better, I mean, they're in the top half of the league in terms of cap space next year. And they still have all of their picks. It's not like they did anything, like the Raiders did, where they're, giving up picks for their future, or the Broncos, obviously, now that they've done that with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. And I saw a smile on your face, laughing about the Broncos. And it's like, even, the Chargers, they went out and spent a bunch of money in free agency, and they didn't give up too much for Khalil Mack, but they did give up something, where it's like the Chiefs, it's like all of their guys are locked down and their rookies are looking good. Like, it's very hard for me to see a way in which this turns on the Chiefs. Like, the Bengals might have. Joe Burrow said that the Super Bowl window is going to be open for his entire career, which I do believe. I do believe is true. Like, I do, like, as much as, even though the Packers didn't get back to a Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl window was open. He just didn't walk through it. And so I think that it's going to be open, but I'm a little skeptical on if he's ever going to get back to one.
I think to your point, Emmitt, there's definitely some validity to that. I mean, you look at the fact that Joe Burrow's extension eligible this offseason. I got to speak with ESPN Bengals reporter Ben Baby, what was it, last offseason, and I asked him about that. I was like, yo, Joe Burrow's extension eligible next offseason. What kind of money are we looking at here? And he was saying easily $50+ million. And who knows now, maybe he could approach $60 million territory. I mean, I don't know if he's willing to take that much, because obviously he still wants the team around him, a la Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes could have taken a lot more money when he signed his deal, but he understood, the dynamics of having a team around you. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but yo, these guys are back in the Super Bowl, and I'm talking about the Chiefs, without Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
You traded away a guy as dynamic as a Tyreek Hill, and that's actually one of the reasons why I had my doubts about the Kansas City Chiefs this season. I was just like, yo, they still have Mahomes, they still have Kelsey, they still have Reed, they still have all these pieces on defense, Chris Jones mainly, but you lose a dynamic threat, an explosive playmaker like a Tyreek Hill, who I thought was a lot more pivotal, a lot more critical to their victory, or in their victory against the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round last season. People forget that on special teams, he had that, what was it, a 60-yard return, and then he had that crucial catch on the last drive, and so he was a lot more pivotal to that, victory. But for them to do what they did this year, with the collection of guys at wide receiver as opposed to having one dynamic threat, I mean, that's just absolutely crazy. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Chiefs attack wide receiver in the draft or in free agency, and you give Mahomes another weapon, Kadarius Toney another year in that system. I agree with you, bro. Kansas City is just going to continue to be a threat for years to come. As far as the Bengals go, you're going to have to pay Joe Burrow. You're going to have to pay T. Higgins. Next season, you're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. Your offensive line is still, not one of the biggest strengths of your team. That still has to be addressed at some point. I don't know, but I wouldn't bet against Joe Burrow. I mean, he really is that dude. And there's just a different aura about him, but I don't think that his chances are going to be nearly as high, at least in the next couple of seasons, until, I don't know, maybe they hit on a draft pick or a free agent signing. We'll see what happens, but I think right now I'm leaning towards you.
And even just, adding on to your point a little bit, you're talking about T. Higgins. T. Higgins is a free agent after this next season. So they have to make a decision, because I don't think that they're going to be able to pay two wide receivers top of the market money. Like we've seen that with the Cowboys. They moved on from Amari Cooper so that they could pay Michael Gallup. And I think at some point they're probably going to move on from Michael Gallup so they can pay CeeDee Lamb. Like, it just doesn't happen where you pay two wide receivers like top of the market money. So they're going to have to make a decision, and which is why it was so crucial that if they were going to win it, they would have had to win it this year, because now you have to make that decision. Are we going to trade T. Higgins this offseason and get something for him? Like, knowing, because if you're picking between the two, you're picking Jamar Chase. I think everyone's picking Jamar Chase. Obviously, he's a top five wide receiver in football. He's probably top 3. But you make that decision. Are we trading him and going to get something for him? Or are we going to run it back for like one final year with all of our weapons and then get nothing for him in the offseason? Because obviously you're not going to try to tag him or anything like that. It's a bummer for the Bengals, because it feels like they missed what was a really good opportunity. And like, you talked about Mahomes' contract. Who would have thought when he signed that 10 years and $450 million is going to sound like a bargain? He's the 5th highest paid quarterback in football. There's, Rodgers, Wilson, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, all making less than him. Patrick Mahomes is still only 28 years old. They're going to go on a tear. Let's move it over to the NFC side of things. The Eagles, they crushed the 49ers. Brock Purdy now is likely to miss the 2023 season. He's going to have to get Tommy John surgery, is what all the reports are saying. On the Eagles side of things, they played a fantastic game. They for sure, even when Brock Purdy was in there, they looked like the better team, the more dominant team. They were getting pressure. I think it's like, even with, Josh Johnson in there, it's like there was pressure on like 15 of 18 dropbacks. Like their defensive line was bullying the Niners offensive line. But for the Niners, this casts a huge shadow of doubt on what their offseason looks like. Again, we'll talk about Tom Brady in a second, but that's obviously not an option anymore. Now it sounds like Purdy's going to miss 2023, so I guess they're going to have to just roll with Trey Lance, and they aren't going to have a backup plan for that. I mean, I don't think they're going to be re-signing Jimmy G because I think he's going to want to, attempt to be a starter elsewhere. He doesn't want to have to, run back what he did this year in terms of just being, one of the highest paid backups. They're in a little bit of trouble in terms of their quarterback situation.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I've partook in a couple of dynasty drafts so far, and I've taken Brock Purdy in all three of them. And I actually projected him as one of my starters because a lot of these leagues are 2 quarterback leagues, and so I've selected him as my second quarterback in a majority of these leagues. And so I thought he was expected to miss a chunk of next season. I didn't think he was supposed to miss all of next season, and so now I'm just like, oh shoot, like, I'm gonna have to pivot towards another guy. So not only am I gonna have to worry about the Niners, but my fantasy teams as well. But that aside, I think with the Niners, if they don't like what they're seeing from Trey Lance, they're going to have to pursue a veteran. I'm not sure how likely it is to see a Derek Carr, in a 49ers jersey, but I think as of right now, he might be the best option. I mean, Aaron Rodgers potentially. Is Dak Prescott on the table? I don't know. Tom Brady's obviously off the table. And even before Brock Purdy's injury, we were hearing reports that Brock Purdy was going to be the guy, over Trey Lance. And so that to me, that tells me that they're still not, they don't think he's ready because they could have easily said, oh, it could be a competition. I mean, I understand what Brock Purdy did, and so you don't want to disrespect what he did by saying that he's going to engage in a competition, but I don't know if Trey Lance is ready. I mean, he was already raw before the injury, but instead of working on his game, instead of working on, the fundamentals and whatnot, he's having a rehab from an injury. And so he was already behind the 8 ball to begin with. And so now that injury, it's kind of taking him away from being able to put in as much work as he could possibly put in. I think San Fran's best option at quarterback is going to be to pursue a veteran via trade, whether that's Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott. Obviously, like you said, Jimmy G's probably out the window. And so if those guys don't work via trade, then maybe you look towards the Derek Carr. But unless Trey Lance just miraculously, heals up and just puts in a whole bunch of work and just shows us otherwise, I just don't know if he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, and adding on to some of those people, like who was Kyle Shanahan's favorite quarterback was Kirk Cousins, and I think that the Vikings are probably looking to move off of Kirk Cousins, in some way, shape, or form. I think the way their season ended kind of showed you his ceiling. Granted, if they don't have a succession plan for him, then they'll probably just hold on to him and kind of run back what they did this year. But yeah, they're in a little bit of a pickle. So the report is that Brock Purdy has not made a decision on whether or not he'll undergo Tommy John surgery for his elbow. He's gonna get a second opinion on it. But Dr. Mark Adkins, who was a former NFL player himself, said that it's expected to miss about a year in terms for the rehab and all that stuff. And he said that a return in 6 to 9 months is unlikely for Brock Purdy. But yeah, their quarterback situation is really weird. I don't even know how, because the Rodgers and Dak opinions, I have a little bit about that in a second, but we'll talk about Brady. That was his. I'm a known Tom Brady hater. I'm his 23-year-long Linsanity run is finally over. I'm just I woke up to that this morning, and I was happy about it in terms of like, thank God he's gone. I watched his video. It made me feel a little bit. It made me feel I didn't expect this. I didn't. Like I thought that it was very odd him, his final press conference in Tampa, he's thanking the reporters. And I don't know, it seemed a little odd because for me, I had really two options for him were on the table. The Raiders and going back to the Buccaneers being because I still think that they, if they would have had another season to add to that talent, because I think offensively they were still talented. I think that their offensive line was super beat up. Their weapons didn't look great. Like Mike Evans had about a 10-week stretch where he didn't have a touchdown. He was just, it just was not great for them all season long. And so I felt like going back there was definitely a possibility. But then that press conference kind of changed my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking Vegas. And all these reports are coming out like, oh, he's going to be playing next year. We just don't know where. And then to, wake up to this news, it was a little bit shocking to me. And I don't think it's like how it was last year where, because last year, especially, after finding out about the whole Dolphins and the tampering situation, he doesn't have like, he retired halfway as like leverage, as like, I'm either you trade me or I'm not going to play. He's a free agent now. He gains nothing from doing this. So I'm thinking it's over for Brady after 23 seasons, 7 rings. I'm assuming you feel, I'm assuming you feel the same way. What do you think about the GOAT retiring?
Man, bro, just like you, I mean, I woke up to that and I was just like really? With San Fran actually looking like a logical, destination with Brock Purdy's injury, the uncertainty, revolving around Jimmy Garoppolo's future and whether or not he's going to re-sign. They don't know if Trey Lance is ready. He didn't want to go back home, or not home, but or actually, yeah, he is
Home.
from, yeah, it
Yeah.
is home. So he didn't want to go home to kind of cap off his career. He'd be on a contender. He'd have a lot more support than he did in Tampa Bay. He'd have a plethora of weapons. He'd have Kyle Shanahan. I mean, honestly, he'd have it pretty easy. With Brock Purdy set to miss all his time, I'm surprised he's retiring now because, like you said, he's a free agent. Like he doesn't gain anything by doing this. I don't think, I don't think that he's done. I mean, for me, I had him going to Vegas before the Brock Purdy situation, and so it just made too much sense. I mean, I didn't think that he was going to end his career off like that. Just them getting bounced, getting smacked by the Dallas Cowboys in the divisional round because originally last season when he had retired, I was just like, yo, he wants to make one more run at it. He wants one more ring or at least one more, deep playoff run. But for him to kind of go out like this after the season that the Buccaneers just had, which was, I don't know, I guess by their standards, it was awful. And so for him to go out like this, it definitely caught me by surprise, caught me off guard, especially given, the situation that that the Niners have at quarterback. I don't know what led to this. I mean, he doesn't have a family that he has to, kind of adhere to. So I don't know. I think later on we'll figure out more details, but I'm definitely caught off guard.
Yeah, it was not something I was expecting to wake up to. It still doesn't really feel real, and it happened like right at the beginning of like a lot of the media cycle. So it's like all of these sports shows are reacting to it, right? Like sometimes I think like last year it wasn't like this. It happened more around noon, and it's
Right.
like so then like you got a day to sit on it, and then it was everybody's reactions. Like I just watched the clip from I think it was Get Up, and it's like Mike Greenberg is reading it. He's reading it and he's like, I'm getting told this in my ear right now. He's not even reading off of a teleprompter. He's just repeating what he's getting told. So yeah, it was definitely shocking.
And bro, sorry, real quick. And I also saw this report from Fox because they said that because people were asking like, oh, why isn't he on the Super Bowl, broadcasting or whatever? Why isn't he a part of the Super Bowl cast? And they were like, yo, we didn't know that he was
Yeah.
retiring, this morning. And so otherwise, I feel like they would have put him, on the Super Bowl cast. But I don't know. Like everyone was caught off guard.
Yeah. It seemed like a very not spur of the moment decision, but watching that video, it seemed like he had very recently come to this conclusion, was like, all right, I just want to get this thing out. Like, I'm tired of asking or, answering the questions. I'm tired of getting reached out to. Let me just put it out there and that'll be it. But yeah, now that he's retired, there's a lot of quarterback controversy or quarterback questions in the NFC. Here's a theory that I've been kind of cultivating for the past week or so. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. This is something I think it works out for three different teams. It involves the Jets, the Cowboys, and the Packers.
Mm.
The Jets are currently looking for a quarterback. They want to bring in. We've heard Derek Carr, who'd probably be making around 30-ish, 40 million, somewhere in that range. They'd probably have to give him a new contract. The Cowboys, they're in a little bit of quarterback limbo as well. Granted, Jerry Jones has come out and said that they're committed to Dak Prescott. They want to talk about an extension with him to help lower his cap number, all of these sorts of things. And then there's the Packers, who have Aaron Rodgers, and they are wondering what their future is going to look like post Aaron Rodgers. It seems more likely that he's going to get traded. It just seems. I was kind of, especially when this offseason started, I was kind of at like a 90-10 he's going to stay. I'm getting way closer to 50-50 than I ever thought I would be. So here is my thoughts. And this works out well. I think for all three teams. Dak Prescott traded to the Jets. Probably first and second, or a first and a third. I think he could fetch that. I think like if Lamar were to get traded, he's probably getting 2, maybe 3 first-round picks, somewhere in that ballpark. I think that Dak Prescott could fetch that, or could fetch a first and a second or a first and a third easily. The Cowboys use those picks, send them to Green Bay, and get Aaron Rodgers. And because I think that one of the crazy things about this is that Rodgers and Dak both have 2 years left on their deal. I think that it would have to come with some stipulations like, hey, Aaron, like, if you're here for 2 years. Like, we don't want any of this. Like, maybe you will, maybe you won't next season. You're here for 2 years. Green Bay gets those picks, probably the same picks you flip for Dak. And then you start with Jordan Love and you are able to reload. And here's why I think it works for the Jets, obviously, because they want a quarterback who I don't think that they want. Well, obviously you'd want a like top 5 quarterback. But with all the reports about Derek Carr, it seems like they feel good about someone who can game manage and just not do what Zach Wilson did and lose them the game. And I think that Dak Prescott's able to do that. Obviously, Derek Carr is able to do that. On the Packers side of things, again, you get to start with Jordan Love. You can retool your offense if you want to, use those picks on weapons, whatever you're going to do. Then on the Cowboys side of things, you're reuniting Aaron Rodgers with Mike McCarthy, because Mike McCarthy, they just got rid of Kellen Moore, and Mike McCarthy has been, got confirmed again by Jerry Jones today that Mike McCarthy is going to be calling plays. And the Packers had a lot of success when Mike McCarthy was calling plays. The only real year that they were horrible was 2017, but they were, I think, 4-1 before Rodgers broke his collarbone. Then Brett Hundley started for a while, but they've been pretty high in points, since 2008 or since 2007. 4th, 5th, 3rd, 10th in 2010, but they won the Super Bowl. 1st, 5th, 8th, 1st. And then in 2015, he lost play calling duties, and they were 15th. 2016 was the run the table year, and he got 4th. He got fired in 2018 when they were 14th in points. It's not like he was ever a horrible play caller, but a lot of it was due to no success in the past couple of years, not being able to really use Aaron Jones properly. So I think that being reunited there, you're giving Aaron Rodgers a defense. You're giving him probably the best 2 receivers that he's been playing with in a while, I would say. He would be able to. It's probably the best duo of receivers he's had since, I would say, probably 2016 with Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. Obviously, a younger Devontae Adams and an older Jordy Nelson. But he's never had a vertical threat like Michael Gallup in terms of contested catching and jump ball. And I think that CeeDee Lamb is just looking to burst into that top 10 of wide receivers if he's not, right there already. I don't think that it's going to happen, but I think that that's a scenario that all 3 teams can look at that, trade compensation and, cap gymnastics aside. I think that that's a scenario that could work for all 3 teams. What do you think about my little plan here, Steezy?
Man, honestly, but I was gonna say, I think I don't remember if it was Skip Bayless on Undisputed, but I remember hearing him, bring this up initially. He was talking about just swapping out Aaron Rodgers for Dak Prescott. Obviously, there'd be draft picks and other compensation involved. It wouldn't just be a straight up, 1-for-1 swap unless both parties were, comfortable with doing so. But ever since he floated that around, I'm just like, yo, I kind of like that. And then, you kind of taking that, and not only did you run with it, but you've added a whole bunch of flavor. I mean, you're talking about Dak Prescott to the Jets. I think that'd be phenomenal. Robert Sala's already gone out in a press conference talking about how the Jets want a veteran, a proven veteran. They don't want to trade up, for a rookie in this year's draft. They don't want to have to develop another guy. They might still believe in a Zach Wilson, maybe as the backup to whatever veteran they end up bringing in. So on the Jets perspective, on the Jets side of things, I think that'd be perfect. I think Dak Prescott is actually the best quarterback that they could, potentially add this offseason with the team that they have, a top 10 defense. They have a bevy of weapons. They have Breece Hall coming back. You have a great head coach. I think Dak Prescott would definitely make the Jets sneaky contenders in the AFC. But as far as Aaron Rodgers going to Dallas, reunited with Mike McCarthy, they have weapons. They have a defense. And he's an upgrade. Even at this stage in his career, I think he's an upgrade over a Dak Prescott. Obviously, the familiarity with a Mike McCarthy, helps. And so I think that'd make the Dallas Cowboys a better football team. I think with Jordan Love starting in Green Bay, I think that's, I guess, a win-win for Green Bay. I mean, you're not really going to go anywhere with an Aaron Rodgers. With Jordan Love, he has, a year or 2 remaining on his rookie contract, so you want to be able to see what he's made of before, you even think about potentially having to re-sign him. And so I think this is a win-win-win for all 3 parties. Dak Prescott in New York, Aaron Rodgers in Dallas, Jordan Love starting, and Green Bay being able to accumulate picks on the side to potentially build around a Jordan Love, or if he doesn't work out, or if there's a quarterback that you like, you can potentially draft another guy, have him compete with the Jordan Love. I absolutely love this scenario. Even though I hate the Cowboys and don't want to see them get better, I think that this would be a great move for them, for the NFL, and especially for Jerry Jones.
And I think that, looking across, it also, I think it fits everywhere. Like, I think that in New York, you're getting a quarterback who's going to be able to handle that New York media market. Like, there's not any more pressure anywhere than Dallas, especially, Jerry Jones doing his weekly radio shows, and he's getting interviewed after the games before the coach is getting interviewed. Like, he would be able to deal with that. Plus, it feels like the Jets are more in it for the long haul. Like, that they're building a very young roster. Whereas I think the Cowboys, and why I think Aaron Rodgers works for them, they're a team who needs to win now. They have 2 or 3 years left in their window, and Jerry Jones isn't getting any younger. Like, he wants to see this team succeed now. And especially since the team feels like at some point there's going to be a large, there's already been a large turnover in terms of their staffing. Like, I think that obviously now that Sean Payton's in Denver, they're obviously not going to get Sean Payton or anything. But I do think that if they, let's say they run it back this year with Dak Prescott and we get the exact same result, they're probably now without a quarterback and probably without a head coach in terms of Mike McCarthy. Like, I think that if you bring in Aaron Rodgers and it fails, I was talking to my friend Dallas about this, and I'm like, even if it's the exact same result with Aaron Rodgers, let's say you just make it to the divisional round and lose with Aaron Rodgers, or you make it to the divisional round and lose with Dak Prescott, you would feel a lot better that you took the shot and it didn't work out, rather than just doing the exact same thing that you've done, I guess, since 2016, with just hoping that Dak Prescott's going to be able to take you past that divisional round. Whereas Aaron Rodgers, generally speaking, the 2 seasons ago against San Francisco, not included, he's been pretty lights out in the divisional round. The NFC Championship game is kind of where his struggles start. But I think that it would fit them. And then obviously in Green Bay, you talked about it. If Jordan Love is good, great. You found your guy. Now you have picks. You can surround him with talent. You don't have a rookie contract sort of situation. But I also don't see, Jordan Love's not going to be out there fetching $40 million after, 2 seasons, right? Unless he goes Patrick Mahomes and wins a Super Bowl and that sort of thing. So you still are able to do that. And if he sucks, you have extra, draft capital, and you are able to increase your team. And if he sucks really bad, you might get Caleb Williams. Obviously that's not, you're not hoping you get Caleb Williams, but it's a nice fallback plan. It's it is very similar. Their plan with that is to what I was saying with the Seahawks should do earlier this season. Obviously Geno Smith was way better than expected. But if the Broncos wouldn't have, been as bad as they were, let's say the Broncos were a team who, advanced the divisional round, they got knocked out, I think a lot of Seahawks fans would feel very different about how this season went. It's well, yeah, so Geno got us to 9-8, and now we're sitting here with whatever pick you guys have, 18th, 20th somewhere. Or I'm talking about your pick.
Okay,
20. It's I think that you would feel a lot different about it. It's this is why we didn't want to see Geno, because we don't feel like we have our franchise guy, but we also don't have the picks to be as high up as we wanted to be. But obviously Denver, losing control of whatever they did has kind of nullified that. But I feel with Green Bay, you have that ability to, you either this guy is going to be our franchise guy or he's not. And there's no middle ground. We know what we're going to be able to do. I think it works for all 3 teams. How realistic is it that it's going to happen? Probably not, especially, Jerry Jones seeming to, want to stand by Dak Prescott. And I've been reading all of the stuff from his press conference earlier today, kind of talking about that. Yeah, we are looking at doing that. But then he also kind of made some comments saying that they want to try to draft a quarterback every year in the draft, just to make sure that they have a backup plan. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's not GMs have done this before where they'll say one thing and do another. So we'll see if it happens. Thank you very much for joining me, Steezy. It's been a while, man.
Man, I know, bro. Like I told you, I've been itching to get back on the boat, and I was actually tuned in watching you guys this past Sunday just for a little bit, and I was just yo, it's been way too long. It's been months. I don't think I've been on since the new year actually became the new year, and so I guess technically I haven't been on since last year. But like I said, you invited me on here, definitely overdue, and definitely fulfills a part of that itch. And so thank you for having me on, Emmett. This was a pleasure, bro. This was fun, and let's do this again.
Hey, of course, anytime. All of his links are in the description. Got his Instagram, Twitter, his YouTube channel. I'm assuming there's probably going to be some content dropping soon, but again, you're always doing so much that it's hard to keep track of.
No doubt, bro. I mean, for those of you guys listening, if you aren't already subscribed, man, hit that subscribe button. Show my guys some love at the Emmitt Sevores Show. All social media platforms. Once you go ahead and do that, right here is my handle at Steezy A Smith, SteezyASmith. Seattle Seahawks, Seattle Sports. That sounds interesting. I'm your guy.
All right. Thank you for joining me, Steezy. This has been episode 7 of the Emmitt Sevores Show. I'll see you next time.
Peace.